to Toot Your Own Horn Music Matters. I am here with the one and only Susan Warner. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Oh, long time coming and super happy you're here and cannot wait for you to share your journey with our audience. How did you find your instrument? How did it happen?
Oh, dear, I have the classic story of, we had a clarinet in the attic sort of thing, right? I'm from a family with just two kids. My older sister, 5 years older than me, and she was a clarinetist, a really great clarinetist.
Oh dear.
Yeah, no, but boy, I mean, it just really kind of, turned me on to the rep. I mean, I grew up and she's like, cranking through the Weber and everything. And when it came time to choose instruments, um, the band director so desperately wanted me to play trombone. I was having none of it. All I wanted to play was the clarinet because I've been hearing it all these years.
Oh my gosh. And what a loving way to learn it because it was not competitive and you were you admired her so much, it sounds like. And that it created a deeper bond between you because you shared this thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it also helped that we were 5 years apart, so we were absolutely never in competition.
Wow.
Yeah. So my mom, it was a pianist. So she got a degree in piano from Indiana University, and she taught, elementary school music for a long time. But she was always playing the piano at home. I mean, my earliest memories of classical music are, well, probably to the detriment of my hearing, sitting under the grand piano while she was cranking up the Grieg piano concerto, just like, yeah. So that's my memories. And then when my sister Lisa and she started playing together, solo rep, yeah, that just stuck with me.
Wow. It's been a family affair.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what about your dad?
Oh, he was an amateur trumpet player and loved it.
Uh-huh.
And he played in our community band well into his 70s. And yeah,
Wow. Did you have a lot of family friends that were musically inclined? Did that mean that musicians were at the house a lot or not really? Or what did that look like?
not particularly. I mean, I grew up in small town Southwest Michigan. I mean, we didn't even have an orchestra in our high school. Um, it wasn't necessarily a musical place, but we had a really great band.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I wasn't surrounded by professionals at all.
That's awesome. And so how did your love of the clarinet evolve into you committing to it, like going to school for it? How did that all happen?
Oh dear, that was totally by accident because I was so set to go to Kalamazoo College as an applied mathematics major. I was all signed on and everything, and I made the life-changing error of calling my former teacher, who at the time had started teaching at the University of Iowa, and I said during my senior year in high school, um, I just won a competition. And she went, "Oh, well, would you like to come audition for?" And that was all she wrote. I just switched gears. Like it was April of senior year.
So you needed someone to give you permission, it sounds like.
Kind of. Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can do this, Sue. Good, go do this.
Yeah, nobody was a professional musician that I knew, so I had no idea I could do it. And yeah, she gave me permission. That's a good way of putting it.
Wow. And then you just were waiting for that because you went Sue the minute she said go.
I did. I did. I imagine my parents were like, but oh well.
And so what did that part look like? Then what happened?
Well, I attended the University of Iowa for, gosh, it ended up taking me 5 years because I uh, got not only performance but music education degree and also applied mathematics minor. So I couldn't give it up totally.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I went straight to East Wing School of Music for my clarinet performance master's.
Before we go on to that, so has that applied minor in mathematics? What does that like? What practical way do you use that today that you feel like connected to it still?
Oh, gee. Well, I'll tell you the most practical way I've used it is I homeschooled both of my children, junior high and high school age. And I mean, I'm not sure I could have done that without some knowledge So
Well, and with the education background too, what an interesting way to apply that. I mean, you're a teacher on many levels, but that's a very interesting way to apply that, really, as being a musician. How creative of you.
yeah, fun. Mimic times too.
Yeah, I mean, because, well, I don't want to jump ahead, but just with all the stress of your job and all the things you do, it's amazing you have done all these things all at the same time. That just amazes me. Like you're very, but musicians are always like that, aren't they? They're so resourceful.
Yes, dig in and you find so many cool things about everybody. Yeah.
Totally true. Okay, so go back to where you left off. So you got into Eastman, and then what? Tell me about Eastman. Who'd you study with? What happened? What's next?
Sure. I studied with Peter Hadcock at Eastman.
Mm.
I mean, he was only there during a brief window between, retiring for Boston and passing away. Maybe he was there 4 years, and I managed to hit his time there. And
You were done when he passed.
correct. He passed after I graduated.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
A lot of people have said amazing things about him. I would love for you to talk a split second about that for any pro players listening to this. It's amazing.
Absolutely. He was down to earth and he would tell you like it was, but it wasn't the sort of like, I mean, if you didn't play it well, he would tell you.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the sort of way that would make you cry. It might kind of make you laugh.
Yeah.
He had a very deep voice and he would say things like, huh, well, that wasn't so good, you know. And you'd be like, yeah, you're right.
So funny.
I don't know. He gave me incredible confidence that I could be an E flat clarinetist in particular. That was, of course, his specialty in Boston, and I owe it to him, that I have found that as part of my clarinet love.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I always just heard the most amazing stories about him, but I didn't really know anyone firsthand. They'd all been sort of passed along stories, not. So that's great. That's really cool testament. And
Nolan, there's one really funny thing about him is he always wore a black turtleneck and like a tweed jacket with jeans. And so I mean this is all the time. His closet was either one outfit or 20 outfits that looked the same. But one day I remember at the end of my degree, we all showed up to studio class wearing his outfit.
oh,
And he comes walking in, he goes, oh.
that's really funny.
Yeah.
You know what that reminds me of? And I don't know if it's just that they don't know what to wear or whether it has more to it. But, when I went to Interlochen, they required you to wear a uniform because they wanted you to not identify with the things that your exterior showed, but instead what you were capable of from the interior. And so it was a conscious effort to eliminate that. And in some ways that does that because then it makes the work show up more than, oh, look at that flashy ring, or I like that purse, or look at those earrings, or I like those shoes, whatever it is.
Right. Good point.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I wonder. And men also don't know what to do, and so they just wear them. Could be that too. So who knows? You don't know. Then what happened?
I met my husband.
Oh, at Eastman or after Eastman?
Well, I was at Eastman and he was playing in the Rochester Philharmonic and started dating after I finished my degree. And Dave, bless his heart, is a master winner of auditions. And so then we started our hopping around the country with the jobs he'd win. And we went from Rochester to Montreal and then Houston and then finally Chicago. Yeah, and so, I mean, this was all just in the course of, like, 2 or 3 years, so the beginning of our marriage was a lot of hopping around and not a whole lot of playing for me. It was
Right.
tough. I had just had not only Eastman, but some really awesome summer festivals like Tanglewood and Schleswig-Holstein, and it was a bit frustrating to be dumped into Canada. As much as I love Canada, I couldn't work.
Right.
And so to just become kind of a homemaker for a few years.
So were you good about practicing?
I was good about practicing because I was taking auditions.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you kept yourself busy. You didn't let it slide. You just didn't get the opportunities you'd hope for to make it be a more fulfilling life. And maybe you would have stayed there if that had gotten worked out. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. You never know what life's taking to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it took 2 years for him to make 4 hops. That's freaking amazing.
2 or 3 years to make it. Well, I know.
I think that's called a streak. Like, I think he was on a roll. Like, pretty much wherever he felt like going, they were going to take him. So he was just rocking it, basically. And it sounds like.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Well, in that regard, that must have been fun because it must have been like, did it surprise him that he was like, or was he really confident? Did he feel like he could nail it? Or what was his attitude about that? How he got through that? Because that's pretty impressive.
That's a good question. Um, my husband is not overtly confident. But he's a very hard practicer and he's diligent and he's a singer of songs and he seriously is humble personality. It's just the whole package is success. I think the diligence and of course he studied with all the right people and did all the preparation. So
A lovely story. Well, it's a lovely story that it is possible to just be a good human being and do all the work and get it right. That's awesome. I like that story. That's awesome. So then you landed in Chicago and then it was your turn, but you were ready. You were probably so pumped and ready to win. Woo.
yes. But it's luckily the freelancing scene in Chicago is good, and I was able to play quite a bit here, and I had a number of private students. And when auditions would come open, those rare auditions in Chicagoland, I would take them, and I was lucky, and it was the right time to get Lyric. It was about 7 years after we moved here.
Wow.
So
How awesome that you got a run. I'm sure following your husband around though at some point had to have felt harder than others. When you got to Chicago, were you sure that you were going to stay and then was it more of a worry or were you more chill about it because there was a lot of work or how did you feel about that? Like,
that's such a good question because you nailed it on the head. I was really proud of my husband, and at the same time, the conflicting feeling is like, but I want something.
right, for sure. I mean, it's a testament to the strength and the love of your marriage that you could get through that with grace like that because I mean, that's hard, right? I mean, it's great. He's winning.
I can't come to always be graceful.
But essentially you did because you're still married.
Yeah.
So it was good enough, obviously.
I mean, I didn't know any different. I honestly like. I'm trying to think of how I felt about my playing. I felt good about my playing, but from my humble upbringing, I think I wasn't sure I was going to win an audition, period. And so living in Chicago and freelancing and doing a little teaching was good enough.
So you were happy basically when you won the job. It didn't have to be.
It Yeah, I mean, I would have been supremely disappointed, but it was certainly not anything I was totally expecting.
Right.
Not at all.
But it also sounds like your husband kind of operates from a similar place because you said he's not overly confident either about winning auditions, but he did the work and he did had all the right people and he didn't, when no one was looking, he was still doing the work.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is we've gotten into the showmanship society instead of it being about what can we do to be stewards of our communities. And to me, that's the big thing here, right? We desperately need everyone to quit competing and start looking outside and going, hey, what can we do in Chicago? What can you and I do in Chicago to support music making? How can we get more people to love the clarinet, the flute, the saxophone, the trumpet, whatever you play?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Very good.
Yeah. So Lyric, how long have you been at Lyric?
Since 2002, so 23 years.
Oh my goodness gracious. That was amazing. What a phenomenal story.
Well, I've finally gotten to the point now where I've played most of the core rep, right? And oftentimes way more than one run of it. But as well, probably any orchestral player, when you're in college, if you're in the audition mindset, you're practicing orchestral excerpts, symphonic excerpts, right? You might play Tosca, I'm trying to think of what else you might hit, just a couple of the rarities, but you're not hitting the regular standard or operatic rep. And you may have not gone to the opera much, let's be honest.
Right. For sure.
But it was a terrifying, 4 or 5 years until I got that first run of every, Carmen, Traviata, Butterfly under my belt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And to win the audition, I bet, at least the way that I was taught to prepare for auditions is you listen to all the recordings and you really get familiar with all the different styles. And you really, maybe you study with different people depending on where you're going that might either have an interpretation of that piece, right? And then you record and record and record and you get other people's opinions. It's a lot of work to prepare for an audition. And so, especially then take on top of that, it's rep you never learned with anyone or that was very, very rarely looked at or you maybe saw once. And now you're up for a job with all that rep.
Yes, exactly. Yep, yep. And all of those secrets about the operatic rep that you don't know, like, oh, people would play a C clarinet on this excerpt, or, oh, they wouldn't play this part on B flat clarinet, they'd play it on A in transpose it. All of these little tricks of the trade that we actually do in the pit that no one knows.
Right. For
Yeah.
sure. And it makes it easier. It makes it sound better. And somebody who is listening or judging might be able to tell because they're used to hearing something else, even if they don't know that you're playing on the wrong instrument, depending on who's listening or, you know what I mean? Like it's fascinating really when you think about it because it's very untapped. And how do you think the state of, talk to me for a minute about opera in general? What do you think we need to do to strengthen opera?
That is a giant question. I think we're on the right track in that we are diversifying our repertoire. We're including not just the typical, belted out professionals on stage, but we have, for example, at Lyric, with the Ryan Opera Center with the so-called training program. But then we're also bringing opera to the schools, and we have students come in for the student operas, and all of that is good. But I I'm not sure there's a perfect potion for it. I would love to see people realize that, La Boheme is just incredibly entertaining and wonderful as Hamilton is. You know,
Is there I don't even know, so forgive my ignorance here. Is there a really amazing, opera excerpt book with lots of tips and tricks? Does that even exist?
it's funny that you mentioned that because I had a friend just ask me that a couple weeks ago, and there is like an older opera excerpt book. But I'm not familiar with it. I've always just worked off parts.
Right. Well, that would be in your spare time, a Sue Warner project, because you just do that just fabulously. And maybe that's a way to help people relate because part of it is the thing that I love so much about you, Sue, is how diverse and interesting of a life you have led because it brings so much to your music making. And it's so obvious to me that that's true, right? You have not sat in the practice room your entire life, but you've been very efficient with what you do. And I think that's brilliant. So good for you.
Thank you. That is kind of the key, I think, to being a musician is diversifying, right? And having that, you have that. Well, you've already touched on this, the helping others side of it. Where you volunteer to help kids with tutoring or, et cetera, et cetera. I've got a lot of stuff I've done in that way. And then also the homeschooling of my kids and just all these different things you can do.
But at its root, you have a base of income that is handsome enough to help support you to do that. And anybody listening, that's one of why I'm on my pedestal preaching about learning to fix and to sell or be a product specialist for instruments, because that's another way to create a base of income that sits alongside small orchestra gigs and teaching so that you can actually have enough income to be more kind and to be more charitable, right? Because it depends if you value that. Because to me, that's what I thought being a musician was about. I thought it was about sharing your gifts so that people felt closer to each other and to you so that you could spread that kind of steadiness and support and love. To me, that's what it always looked like. And somehow we've lost our way because there's not enough money. People need to make a living. There's not enough jobs, right? People need to make a living. And we're losing that spark, and it needs to come back, because if it doesn't come back, it will clearly kill our profession, which is already struggling. And to me, this is one of the things that has to get fixed. Sorry to be on my pedestal.
Couldn't agree more. I am well aware of my privilege in that I have this job and my husband has his job. And I'm also well aware of my responsibility to keeping kids in it and to, I have a Chicago Musical Pathways Initiative student. I tutor kids from the west side of Chicago in writing college essays. We all have an incredible, if we are able, outside of our time that we earn money, if we are able to give back, that is so crucial.
But step one is we need more musicians to have a base of income that may not be at the level or the prestige of Sue Warner, but have enough income to support them in a way that reflects the kind of lifestyle you have, right? Because I think there's so much opportunity out there. I mean, if you can't, the thing about fixing instruments, and I don't want to preach about this, but the thing about fixing instruments is it takes that attic clarinet and it gets Sue Warner to start to play it with her sister, because somebody could fix it. And if they couldn't have fixed it, you'd probably play the trombone.
Yeah,
right. Right? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
Somebody had to be able to get that start, and that's repair. At its most base level, it's repair.
Yeah. There is such a need for qualified, technicians in the repair department.
So many people started, adults, and there's so many people out there that are like harming themselves by doing all these weird things. They could enjoy playing into a musical instrument and screaming their head off, right? And they'd feel better. They felt like, when you have a really long blow, you're like, oh yeah, that felt great, right?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So if somebody was listening to this podcast and just couldn't resist our story, what would you tell them to pick up a wind instrument and just give it a try right now?
Like what to inspire them?
Yes. To get someone from this to say, I'm going to go do this.
The clarinet, in my opinion, is the instrument that has the most potential for building a community. And what I mean by that is when you start the clarinet as a beginner, you're probably playing in a band, and the largest section in the band is the clarinet section. And usually, barring friendly competition, everybody's just having a great time honking and squeaking and just playing together. And then as you continue to build on your skills and you learn that the clarinet actually has, in my opinion, the best repertoire of all the wind and brass instruments. Every major composer wrote for the clarinet. We have Stravinsky, Debussy, Gershwin. You've got everybody. You just name it, you've got it. And that's not necessarily true for every other wind or brass instrument. And string players actually like playing with us. For example, we have the Mozart Clarinet Quintet and the Brahms Clarinet Quintet and the trios and blah, blah, blah. I mean, the list goes on. So for me, it's all about community. Some of my very best friends in the world are some clarinetists.
Thank God. Amen for that.